Hello everyone, this is Ankita Rani, and in this video I will start a new topic of yours, that is from the poetry section. So today I will start teaching a new topic, that is Where the Mind is Without Fear. This is a poem written by Rabindranath Tagore. So before going into the meaning of explaining the meaning of the poem, it's important to know that what are the questions you may get on based on this poem. So let me tell you that what are the probable questions you may get. Like you can get either to write the summary of the poem in a very simple question. You can get like this, write a summary of the poem, or you can get the theme, write the theme or central idea of the poem. Okay, or the other type of question you may get that they can pick any of the lines from the poem, right? Like I have picked two lines from this poem, where the mind is without fear, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action. So they can just pick any of the lines from the poem, right? And they can give you for explanation, like explain the idea contained in the following line. So like it's very similar to the reference to the context. You must have idea about this reference to the context. So it's like something like this. So these are the probable question. Otherwise they can ask you anything, but it's very important to know the line by line meaning, right? Because this poem is full of meaning. Every line carries deep meaning. So if you know the meaning of the lines, so it would become so very easy for you to answer any type of question. Maybe they can ask you from apart from this they can ask you anything. It depends on them. I just told you about the probability, that these are the probable question they can give you. Otherwise they can ask you anything. Okay, so before explaining the lines of the poem, it's very important to give you introduction. So actually, let me start giving the introduction. So in the introduction section, what I did, I divided into two parts, like about the author and about the poem, because it's very important to know about the author too, right? So I think this name is very familiar to you. It's a Rabindranath Tagore. You all must know this. All must have the idea who is this person. He's a very famous personality, but still I will give a little bit of introduction about this the author Rabindranath Tagore. So Rabindranath Tagore is a Bengali writer. He belongs to Bengal. He's a Bengali poet. Definitely he's a poet. He also wrote short story. He's a short story writer too. He composed song composer, and he also wrote playwright, dramas and essays. So he is a very versatile writer. He was a very versatile writer. He wrote different genres of literature. He wrote poem, he wrote short story, he composes song, he wrote dramas and prose. So the other important thing about Rabindranath Tagore is he was the first non-European to receive Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1930. So I think we know Rabindranath. This is a very important fact about Rabindranath Tagore, that he is a Nobel-winning laureate. He won Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1930. Okay. So this was all about the author. So let's just begin about the poem. So in the introduction of poem, let me tell you that this poem was originally composed in Bengali. So Rabindranath Tagore composed this poem in Bengali and gave the title under the title Prarthana, right? Which means prayer, Prarthana. So, firstly, he wrote this poem in Bengali, since he was from Bengal. So, he wrote this poem in the 1900. Then, what Rabindranath Tagore did, he himself, translated this Bengali poem into English in 1911. Then, firstly, he composed in 1900. Then, he translated that Bengali poem into English in 1911. Then, after this translation appeared in Nobel winning anthology, that is Gitanjali. So this poem, where the mind is without is fear, where the mind is without fear, is taken from Gitanjali. Actually, Tagore got Nobel Prize for this, Gitanjali, right? He wrote Gitanjali, a Nobel-winning anthology. It's a anthology means collection of poem. So in Gitanjali, there are so many poem. So poem it is where the mind is without fear is poem number 35. So he wrote, this he included, and after that this translation appeared in Nobel winning anthology Gitanjali, right, which published in 1912, and after that in 1930 he got the Nobel Prize for this Gitanjali. Okay, got the idea? Okay, so this was all about when the poem was published and a little bit history behind the poem, right? So what the poem is all about, why he wrote poem, what is in the poem. So let me tell you that. Okay, this poem is written in the form of a prayer to God. So Tagore wrote this poem in a form of a prayer. He is, praying to God. He is praying to Almighty. He is praying to, omnipresent. He is praying to God. Why he is praying? I will tell you later on. Right. So let me tell you one thing, that when poem was written, India was under British rule. So this is a very important fact, the very important thing in this poem, regarding this poem, that when the poem was written, India was under British rule. Because as you all can see, poem was published finally in 1912, right? So definitely we got independence in 1947. So definitely when the poem was written, India was under British rule, and people were eagerly waiting to get their freedom. So for all people were eagerly waiting to get the freedom. So actually, in this poem, what Tagore did, he has written in the form of a prayer, right? He is praying to God in this poem, and he is explaining, he is revealing his own concept of freedom in this poem. So let me tell you one thing, that for us, what is freedom? Freedom, what we often say that we got freedom in the year 1947. What does it mean? It means, all the Britishers gone away to Britain, and all the power came into the Indian government, right? So for us, freedom was like, Britishers must go to their country. Britishers must leave this India. For us, it was the concept of freedom. But for Tagore, this was not only freedom. He had a very big concept. He had a very big concept about freedom, because his concept of freedom was not in a very narrow sense. So Tagore is talking about freedom at all levels. Tagore in this poem, when I will teach you the lines of the poem, you will get to know. But in a introduction, it's very important to tell you that in this poem, Tagore is talking about not only political freedom, because we only link freedom with the political, right? Politically we get freedom, but he's talking every kind of freedom. Like he's talking about religious freedom, he's talking about spiritual freedom, he's talking about moral freedom, and he's talking about intellectual freedom. So for him, freedom is not only limited to the political level. Okay, so actually this was I can give you in the introduction, but later on I will tell you what it is all about. So one more thing, two or more three things I just want to add in this introduction, that this poem is called prose poem, because there is no rhyme, there is no music. When you will go through the poem, you will feel that there is no music. But usually what happens when you because usually in poem you will feel a kind of a music after reading it, but there is, since it lacks rhyme, so this poem is known as prose poem, right? And you can find different figure of speeches like alliteration, metaphor, and personification. So let me just tell in a very brief what are these. Alliteration is a figure of speech, in which you can find the repetition of consonant sound. Like in the poem, I have taken an example from the poem, like head is held high. The whole line is head is held high. So here you can see the h. These h is a consonant, and you can find the repetition. So here it is like a alliteration, right? So metaphor is what? It is a comparison. There in simile, what happens? Simile is also comparison, but we get in simile word like or as. But here we don't get word like or as, but it is a indirect comparison, right? Like camel is the ship of desert. We are comparing a living thing and non-living thing, camel and ship, right? Like but here there is no word like and as. And what is personification? Personification is attribution of human qualities to inanimate ideas. So I will give you the instances from the poem, so that you can make a complete introduction of the poem, because introduction is a very important part, because this whole introduction part you can add in your answer while writing, while attempting any question based on the poem. So introduction is a very important part. These things will make your answer rich, right? So I will start in the next video. I will start explaining the lines of the poem. Till then, bye, and thanks for watching my video.